Hi, George. How you doing today?
Good, Dave. Good, good.
Um, let's start off this interview. Tell me a little bit about yourself, like where you're from, kind of like how you grew up,
Okay.
basically.
Yeah, sure, man. Uh, Obviously, full name is George Hernandez. I'm 24. Actually, turned 25 in a few hours from now. Midnight's Metro.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. Turned 25 years old. Um, Born and raised in Los Angeles, California. Lived there till about I was 16 years old. Moved into the Inland Empire section of California. Lived there until I joined the military and left. Come from a family of just me, mom, dad, and older sister. And that's it.
Okay. You mentioned joining the services. What branch did you choose and why?
Yeah, I joined the army actually when I was 17 years old. Joined it for several reasons. The main primary reason being that I've always wanted to been fascinated first of all with the military lifestyle and being a soldier. And ever since I was a kid, every Halloween I was a soldier for Halloween. Um, I love the idea of serving the United States, and just being a soldier. I love the whole idea of it. So uh, it was only natural that as soon as I graduated from high school and was old enough to join, I joined.
I can understand that.
Yeah,
Me and my brothers grew up in the mountains and we played army all the time.
yeah, exactly.
It's one of the big determinant reasons why I ended up joining the military as well.
Right,
Hold on one sec.
no problem.
Having a film guy, I had to came unplugged there. Okay, so you said you joined the army. What was your job and responsibilities that you had in the army?
I was actually my official job title was an 11 Bravo infantryman. So we all know what infantry do. It's just the basic land force of the military. We're the fighting force of the army. We're the ones who go out and fight the war. What people typically know as the front lines. That's us out there fighting the war, fighting the enemy, and I believe the army has it defined as the the main land force that defends the United States from all enemies, something like that. It's a crazy definition they have, but long story short, go out there and fight. That's really what your job is. Just you're an infantryman. You're made for combat. So that's what I
Okay.
did.
Well, let's go out that. Speaking, you're talking about being deployed and out there in combat and
Right.
fighting. How long were you deployed, and what was it like being deployed?
Well, it I was we were scheduled to be deployed for 18 months or a year and a half, which is you being a service member yourself, that's a long deployment. A year and a half is a real long deployment, especially when you compare it to the length of deployments for other branches. It's very very long deployment. Um, I was actually deployed for 16 months, so I was just 2 months short before I was sent back home of completing my entire deployment. And it was how my deployment. What was it like? It was definitely intense. It was a experience like nothing other. I don't think I ever have or ever will go through something of that nature again. It was especially being I was airborne infantry. I was with the 82nd Airborne. Um, right when I went through my OSA training or my infantry training, went straight to airborne school and went straight to the 82nd Airborne from there. So especially being with those guys, I believe that that unit tries to maintain a certain reputation. So they purposely get assignments in areas that are extremely hostile and volatile. So um, yeah, it was definitely a big change. My being deployed was a big change from the typical typical from what I was used to here in the United States. The lifestyle we live here is definitely something that it's difficult to describe just how intense and different it is.
Can you tell us what the deployment environment was like? How did you live while you were deployed in the desert?
Sure. Well, I was living in Kunar province, uh, which is way in the east of Afghanistan. The province itself is bordering Pakistan. So I was out in the east, Afghanistan, and you think people think the war in the Middle East, they immediately think of giant open desert. You know, they think of Iraq or whatever they've seen in movies, stuff like that. Uh, on the contrary, Kunar province where I was was about 30, 40 miles from a city called Asadabad. Um, it was actually mountain, extremely tumultuous terrain, mountains everywhere, and and pine trees and that sort of environment, a lot of snow. So it's not what people would think of right away when they think of Afghanistan. So living there, being there for as long as I was like I said earlier, different. But we lived in a place called it was a FOB or Forward Operating Base, FOB, California was the name of it, given to it by the guys who built it before us, which is the 101st Airborne. They're the ones who built the FOB, and it was difficult because it's tiny FOB. In comparison wise, we compare it to about the size of the UAT Commons. So that if you look at the main commons, that's about the size of the FOB I lived in. So as you can imagine, for my entire company to be in this FOB here, it was rough because typically not the whole company was there, but most of the platoons were there. So it was cramped, extreme lack of privacy, no privacy whatsoever. Got to get used to liking the guy next to you, man, because you're gonna be sleeping in a cot a few feet from him, and that's your living space right there. And like I said earlier, different because all these luxuries or little fertile creature comforts, if you will, that we have in the U.S. showers, restrooms, beds, everything. You have a bed there, a cot, but it's nothing like your king size at home. It's not like taking a nice hot shower here at home, eating a home cooked meal. MREs, water is extremely limited, so shower is not really an option unless it's your turn. We had a list who got the shower this day and who didn't. So we took turns showering. So it was just a completely different lifestyle.
Kind of like camping.
Exactly.
You're like going camping out here in the desert in Arizona somewhere
right.
with limited resources.
Well, yeah, without the fun.
Wow. I've never been through that, but I could imagine that being a very rough thing to go through for 18 months. Too.
Yeah, it's rough, man. It was definitely rough.
I go camping for a week and I'm ready to get back to McDonald's in my bed for 18 months.
Absolutely, man.
Wow. So while you were deployed, how was communication, back home, being in contact with your wife and stuff? How often did you get to talk to them?
It was definitely not as often as you'd like. It was rough. Mail was a lot of people think it's I was deployed in 2000 from 2009 2010 that time frame. So you think it's the modern age. Technology is the way to do it. As you can imagine, man, as I described earlier, where I was living, it wasn't an option. We had really limited technology there, which eventually was destroyed in a firefight. I'll get into that later. But mail was the primary way to just really sometimes the only way to keep in touch with your family. So you actually got a sense of what a lot of soldiers went through back then. In other wars where that was the only way to get information back and forth between your family.
How long did it take to get mail back and forth from your family, or when you were sending letters to your wife?
Typically, I got a response in a good month about 2 weeks or so, something like that. So we write the letter out. A specific group of soldiers in our company made runs back and forth to a bigger base over in near Asadabad, which was manned by Army and Air Force, and they handled the mail back and forth. So I don't know what their procedures were, but it typically took about 2 to 3 weeks, something like that. If things were really good, it took 2 weeks. Average 2 to 3 weeks. That was how long it took, and mail was the primary way to just get a hold of your family, write back and forth, and get pictures over, stuff like that.
Okay. So while you were deployed, you just mentioned a firefight, and I know you have a Purple Heart.
I do, yes.
So can you tell us what was the hardest thing about being in combat, to dealing with that?
The hardest thing about being in combat is gonna be dealing with with losing friends. That's definitely the hardest part of the combat because, you know, despite what anyone ever says about, as far as combat is concerned, not being scared, that's a feeling that never really goes away. You know, the whole being scared during a firefight, you're always scared, but with experience and time, you react to them differently. You know, you're always scared. Of course, you always get that feeling in the back of your head to where you're terrified, but you know you have to react this way from experience. The last firefight didn't go so well for us. We lost a couple guys because we reacted this way. Okay, now we learned from that. Let's do this now. So, um, you know, it's rough the firefights, but the combat itself is rough. But you eventually learn to deal with it. Um, Losing friends, something's a feeling you never ever get. You never get over it. Somebody dies, man. You especially one you knew them before the deployment. Prior to that, you were buddies back home. I was stationed at Fort Bragg for years. So it's like these were my friends. I went out to drink with them on weekends, went camping with them. On our spare time, off duty stuff like that. We would just have fun all the time, and then all of a sudden they're gone. It's like they're dead now, and it's like it sucks, man. And never get even to this day. You never forget about them. You never get used to the feeling. So yeah, that would definitely be the hardest part of it, as well. And especially when you consider that we lost 23 guys. It's a really high number for a deployment. We lost 23 guys in 18 months. So yeah, it just goes to show you how many friends you actually lose, and the feeling just never goes away.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've lost friends and families in car accidents and
Right.
heart attacks and stuff like that. But I can only imagine having a tight knit group of people in that
Yeah.
environment and losing people in combat, knowing that potentially that can happen again the next day.
Absolutely, man. It's a crazy feeling.
Thanks,
Insane.
thanks for doing what you do. I wish no one had to do that. So you said you've been in several combat situations. You've got the Purple Heart. Can you tell us about the incident that led to you receiving the Purple Heart?
Yeah, sure. There's actually two of them, actually. Unlucky enough for me. Um, the way it went down was the first time was about, just to give you a man, it's hard to remember sometimes. Though, it was roughly about 14. No, yeah, it had to be like 14 months in, let's say 13, 14 months in. It was just a foot patrol, standard. We typically went on mounted patrols, meaning we took our vehicles around, went on patrols that way. Um, but we at time did do foot patrols, to show force, a bunch of soldiers patrolling around, typically around it's called the Korangal Valley area. That's the area we typically patrol. So we were on a foot patrol there. We just got into a firefight the day before, rough one actually. Lost a couple guys, but have to keep showing the force. Have to keep showing the Taliban, despite what the type of firefights we're in, we're always going to be here. We're not going to go away. So um, after a rough fight like that, just same routine next day. Went on another foot patrol. We're on this foot patrol here, going through the Korangal Valley area by Green River, and it was just typical ambush. Start off with an improvised explosive device explosion. Once that went off, we didn't lose anyone there. It was at a distance. We all took our cover as we normally would, and after that, typically the way it goes down. I call it a situation typical because the way it goes down is IED, small arms fire, and it was exactly the same thing. This time, it was IED, followed by small arms fire. Don't recall exactly how many enemies were in the area when it happened. Just recall it was kind of small arms fire. We were able to locate where the fire was coming from, so we engaged them back. Start shooting back at them, and just turns out into a big firefight. We're going at it, and I remember us moving back and forth on location, like he's trying to get closer to them so we can engage them better, and we can see how many there are exactly. Once we saw how many there were, which if I remember correctly, it was quite a few of them. We decided that air support was the best option, so we actually started doing the contrary, moving a little bit away from them so we can safely call in their support while still engaging them. We're not going to run away from them, so we have to engage them while greatening the distance that we are to them. So we were going through that, and honestly, man, nothing out of the ordinary. We're just running back and forth. I'm running back to the location to meet up with the rest of my platoon. We don't all run at one time. We split it up. And when we got there, on the way there, excuse me, I felt a burning sensation in the back of my leg, and when that happened, I was just like, whatever. I didn't think much of it because I felt it at first. It was sudden, but then it didn't hurt anymore. It was whatever. So just kept running. Got to the location there. I just took my position until a friend of mine pointed out that I was bleeding from my calf. Looked back, saw a lot of blood there. So I immediately said, "Oh Christ, I'm shot. Something happened. Forrest Gump, something bit me. That's what I felt for. That's how I felt at the moment. So, I cut open the leg of my pants and I saw I had a gunshot wound. Fortunately, it was in and out flesh wound. So, medic patched it up. We got through this firefight, saved like we typically did. Typically results in most of them being killed or captured. And then we went through the normal procedure. And then once we got back to the fob, a couple people had to be airlifted out due to more severe injuries. Platoon sergeant insisted I be airlifted with them just to get my leg checked out. Like I said, it didn't hurt anywhere. It hurt, but it wasn't severe. I felt like I could have just stayed there, no problem. Just have my medic do check up on it every now and then. But platoon sergeant insisted I be airback, so they took us all over to a big base in Afghanistan called Bagram, which is operated by the Air Force there. They have actual hospital set up there, like a really big structural hospital. Went there, got treated for infection, make sure it wasn't infected like that. I was there for about 2 days, 3 days, something like that. I was informed that I was going to be receiving Purple Heart for that, along with a couple other people there. And that was it. A lot of the guys went back to the States, but they determined that the gunshot wound wasn't, which actually what I wanted to, because I felt that it wasn't that serious. They determined the gunshot wound didn't debilitate me in any way, so they said I was okay to go back into combat. So okay, that sounded good to me.
It sounds like that incident you were fairly lucky, just
Yeah.
a flash wound.
Yeah,
Just a
exactly.
flash wound,
It's exactly, so yeah, that was the first one. The second one happened. I know this was for a fact was 16 months in because that's when my deployment ended. This one was a little more serious. This one we're actually on a mounted patrol in Asadabad, in the city. So this one I was actually the TC of the vehicle, meaning I was in the front passenger seat of the vehicle. Long story short, not to get too crazy detail about it. Just patrolling the city, typical amount of patrol. Driving through, we were about 5 or 6 vehicles deep at that time, all 1151 Humvees up armored. So we're just going on a typical patrol, and my gunner pointed out we were the trail vehicle. We were the very last vehicle in the whole convoy. Gunner points out to me that there was we were being he thinks we were being followed by someone in a vehicle because every turn we made, this individual make the same turn. Every time it looked like we were going to turn, he looked like he was going to turn. So it's just basically following us. Tell him just keep a good eye on him. I reported to my platoon sergeant on the radio, let him know that I thought that we were being followed. At this time, I was just to point out, I was already E5. I was sergeant, so I was responsible for the personnel in my vehicle because the rest of them were E4 and below. So I informed him, and he said just keep a good eye on for that until my gunner just be on point. So we just go about the patrol, as just normally. And what I can remember, it's kind of vague right now. What I remember about it is I recall pulling, getting a little bit separated from the rest of our convoy. If anyone who's been to Afghanistan, the traffic it's insane. It's crazy traffic, and it's the onset's quick, man. It happens out of nowhere. Traffic is crazy. So that's what happened to us. Traffic got really bad. We typically try to plow through anything, but this got really thick, and we got a little bit separated. And what I recall is we were on Route Hawaii. That was the code name for the route we were on. we're on that route and we're approaching a big intersection. And as this is happening, from what I can recall, my we're getting into the pulling into the intersection, and my gunner says, I hear him like going nuts over the radio, saying, oh crap, that's the guy, that's the guy. And I remember looking over, and on this side of the intersection, seeing a white vehicle that fits the description that he gave us, coming right at us. I mean, at a high rate of speed. I mean, extremely fast. At that point, I don't think there was a question, and there wasn't a question in anyone's mind, that was gonna that was it. That guy was that guy was a V-bid. He was gonna blow himself up. And sure enough, man, it's don't remember too much after that, man. I remember coming to, when I was hanging upside down, my vehicle was rolled over, bleeding out the ears, face is. Ended up having a facial fracture, ended up having a collapsed lung, and ruptured eardrums on both sides. So
the car did blow up.
it did. Oh yeah, he blew up,
Like a
and
suicide bomber type.
Mhm.
Just drove into you and boom.
fortunately, he didn't drive into us. He detonated about 40, 50 feet away from us, and it still did all that damage. That goes to show you how crazy of an explosion it was. And when I came to, man, I was hanging upside down, stuck with the seatbelt still. Um, I remember looking around and just seeing, man, you couldn't see much. It was just a huge cloud of smoke,
What was
Smoke
going through your
everywhere.
mind as you were coming to realizing what happened?
Man, the first thing in my mind was what the hell just happened, I mean, uh, it's crazy. Like it's so hard to explain. Your ears are ringing. You can't hear anything. At that point. I think the first thing that crossed my mind is one, what just happened. Two was wondering why I couldn't breathe. I take really very small breaths, but I didn't really I couldn't take full breaths. I felt like I was drowning a little bit even. It's a strange sensation. I felt like I was drowning, and you know, what's going through my mind is trying to help my soldiers out. My first reaction was, we're upside down. Where the hell's my gunner? Looking around, see smoke everywhere, smoke clearing up. You see a lot of other civilian vehicles blown up to bits too, because there was a big of an explosion. There were a lot of cars close to him destroyed, and you see a lot of people panicking around, and people running around like crazy. And I can't see my gunner anywhere. I don't see him, so he's the main thing on my mind. Um, Private First Class Sullivan. He was the first thing on my mind because I couldn't see him anywhere. I ended up not seeing him, but obviously, I found out what happened later. He was thrown about 30, 40 feet away from our vehicle, and he died with the explosion. He was killed. My driver was killed as well. He had internal injuries, traumatic brain injuries, which ended up killing him as well. So the driver and my gunner both ended up being dead. The soldier behind me, Specialist V above, actually ended up losing his right arm. Um, and the guy behind him, I can't remember his name. He was new to my unit. He was actually okay. I think he got hit in the face with an ammo can, a loose ammo can, and he got facial fractures. But besides that, he was okay, thank goodness. So, considering what a lot of the soldiers in that vehicle went through, I consider myself extremely lucky. Those injuries suck, but I consider myself lucky. Um, so anyway, get back to this. That happened. I was just trying to collect myself there. Once I kind of did, we started actually getting hit with small arms fire. So that's when I realized, wow, this wasn't just a random suicide bomber. It was actually a pretty well coordinated attack. Uh, what's going through my mind? Man, where the hell is the rest of my convoy? I hope they get here right now, because we're getting shot at, and I see people running, scattering into buildings, and I don't know where the bullets are coming from, but I can hear them, and I can see bullets hitting the ground outside of the vehicle. So I'm kind of panicking here, and I'm still upside down here at this moment. I can't get this damn seatbelt off. Luckily, the private behind me ended up getting his off. He had a seatbelt cutter, which I couldn't find mine. He cut my seatbelt, got off, cut the driver loose, cut the guy behind me loose. His, for lack of a better term, man, his arm was turned into hamburger meat, if you will, man. It was just gone, soft, and it seemed like a bone. There was no bone. It was just soft, mushy skin. So we try to help as much as we could. Um, Luckily, the vehicle's holding up. There's no bullets coming into the vehicle, thank goodness. So we're safe in there for the most part. And at this time, man, that this is what I remember. What I just described to you, it's still in and out. It's still like, man, it goes in and out, in and out. But, apparently we were there for a good 15 minutes in the vehicle. To me, it seemed about 2 or 3 minutes. It seemed really fast. Didn't seem like 15 minutes, but apparently we were in there for a while until our convoy made it back around. Because I remember when they arrived, I remember hearing the bullets just hitting the Humvee over and over, and I see big cracks on the windshield. So what's going through my mind at that time is I've never been too religious, but you turn religious at that time, man. You really do.
I think anybody would at that point in time.
Yeah, man. At that point in time, I told myself, wow, dude, when I saw the windshield cracking, I said, that's it, man. It's over. That's it. My life ends right here in Afghanistan, right here in this vehicle with these guys. So naturally, as a soldier, I reach for my weapon, grab my weapon. Guys behind me, they're hurting, but guess what? They're reaching for their weapons as well. And guess what? If we're gonna go out, we're gonna go out fighting. We're not gonna. I would never surrender to anybody else in Afghanistan. They got into the vehicle, I never would. So there's no way that would happen. So it was kind of a non-verbal mental agreement that we were all going. If we're gonna go out, we're gonna go out fighting. Which was cracking until I hear a heavy machine gun going off, kind of going like do 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 do, sound of a 50 cal. Look over and I see American vehicle tires pull up right next to my window, and I'm like, oh God, thank goodness for that, man. I see that. I see them pull up, and I see another Humvee pull up in front of us and block the windshield off. But the vehicle was a little strange. It was actually some British soldiers who were in the area, saw what was happening. They pulled up. A guy with a British accent gets out, starts talking to us through the windshield, telling us we're going to be all right, not to worry, they're going to get us out. And I see our guys pulling up, more and more of them just pull up and engaging the enemy while the Brits pull us out. They come out with a axe sort of apparatus thing, and they just crack the windshield open, pull us out. And once they pull us out, man, I blacked out then. I remember waking up on a helicopter because the reason I woke up was because I had a chest tube put in me with no anesthetic, man. I tell you, the worst feeling you'll ever go through, man. It was extremely painful. It was excruciating, man. That woke me up out of the consciousness. I was out. That woke me up. I woke up screaming, fighting them. A couple medics holding me down. And I tell you, when that chest tube went all the way in, I got freaked out because I felt it go in and I saw blood shoot out of it. But once it did, I don't know how chest tubes work, but I took the deepest breath of air I'd ever taken in my life. I could breathe again. So it hurt like hell, but I definitely welcomed it after that. I took a deep breath of air, passed out again. Next thing I know, wake up about anywhere between 24 to 30 hours later in Germany. I woke up in Germany, man. Confused as hell at 2 in the morning, not knowing what the hell just happened. My mind was a little fuzzy still. There's a mirror right next to me. I see my face is grotesque, man, swollen as heck, from the fracture. It wasn't nothing crazy serious, just a fracture. When you get fractures, it swells up,
Yeah.
So
My dad was in a really bad accident. Not to compare it to anything you did.
No, absolutely.
When I was a young man, my dad was in a very bad accident.
Yeah.
He had his face pretty messed up in a car accident. So I can only imagine getting blown up about how that. My dad's eyes was out of his eye socket.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, that's
he was
mine.
missing part of his nose and cuts and
Lord,
stuff.
yeah.
His face was blown up like a balloon.
Yeah, man.
So
I mean,
I just imagine being blown up.
Yeah, it
in
sucks.
Situations and how it would be awful.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right, man. And I looked over in the mirror and I saw my face was swollen. I got scared because I didn't know what happened to my face, but I was told it was just a fracture. So it was just natural swelling. It would go down in a few days, nothing serious. They told me I'll be okay. They said the most serious injury was the collapsed lung. I ended up having my left lung was collapsed, so I had to go through a couple surgeries to get that fixed. And my ear, I had patches on both my ears, so you can imagine it was a little strange. And I woke up and went like this, and they said both my eardrums were ruptured. So they said that also would be a natural healing process, just take a little bit of time. First question I asked was, where's the rest of my guys? Where are they? explained to me that he was over there getting ready to get surgery on his arm for his injuries. They explained to me that my driver ended up dying because of his injuries. So and my gun. They told my gunner ended up dying as well. They said they didn't know. They didn't know the details. Obviously, they're just hospital personnel. They know the story. They don't know exactly what happened. They told me they just broke it down to me pretty much that yeah, that's what happened with it, and they allowed me to contact my family, which was one of the best feelings on earth you can imagine, man. I got to talk to my parents and my girlfriend at that time and everything. Who's my wife now? My wife, basically, I should say. I got to talk to them. They put my son on the phone. Obviously, he was only a couple. My son was only. My son was about a year old. I deployed. I forgot to mention in the beginning. I deployed 3 days after my son was born. My son was born April 20th, 2009. I deployed April 24th. April 24th, I deployed. So, put my son on the phone. Got to talk to him. My family was extremely relieved to hear from me because they had been notified by my chain of command that I was involved in an accident. That's how they referred it to, just to not scare my family like crazy, And I got to talk to them. My family was broken down, man. But when they talked to me, they felt a little bit better. And that was it, man. I was in Germany for a few months recovering. We had a little mini Purple Heart ceremony there, in which the president was supposed to come and issue us our Purple Hearts because he happened to be in Europe at the time. Unfortunately, they said some other things came up that he had to take care of. So apparently, we took, obviously, I don't mean to sound like a mean person to the president, but that was a little more important. So he went to take care of that stuff. We didn't get to ended up getting our Purple Hearts from some officer I never met in my life. Gave us our Purple Hearts there. And then that's it, man. Went back to the States, got to meet up with the rest of my guys.
Speaking of returning to the States,
yeah.
After being deployed for such a long time and going through the traumatic events that you went through, what was it like to return home and be around your family again?
Strange, man. It was definitely strange. It was a weird feeling because, 1 minute you're in a combat environment getting shot at, you're hurt, you're losing your friends. Next thing, you're back home at a family barbecue, drinking beer, eating beef, eating chicken, eating steak, man, and you're like, wow, you look around, man. This happened to me several times. It's so surreal. You take a look around, see my mom and dad there eating, laughing, my son sitting there in front of me, my girl right next to me. I got my cousins, my aunts, my grandparents there, and so surreal. I'm looking around like, wow, I'm really right here, right now, next to all my family here. Like nothing happened, It's like a few months ago, I wasn't on the verge of being killed in Afghanistan. I'm right here with my family. Like it never happened. Like the last year and a half didn't happen. Like all my friends didn't die. It's strange. Obviously, eventually you get used to being back in the States. You're back to normal. It takes a while. We definitely went through right through deployment, through the reintegration phase, as the Army calls it. Went through a rough patch. Absolutely, went through a really rough patch. Required some counseling, required some help. But fortunately, the Army was really good about helping us, and then you get to the point where you're able to put it behind you. It didn't happen, and it did happen. But you put it behind you. We're moved on. We're here now. And
I think you just answered my next question without me having an accent. I was going to ask you, how was that adjusting?
Yeah.
A couple more questions and we'll run on. How do you think the military experience affected your overall life?
Definitely think it was a positive experience and a positive effect because, the deployment was rough. The deployment, didn't turn out the way I had hoped, where I walked away without any injuries. It didn't turn out that way, excuse me. But overall, it was a good experience, man. I signed up. I volunteered to join the service. No one forced me. No one told me I had to do it. Actually, on the contrary, people didn't want me to join because, I joined right during the surge in Iraq, 2006, when I joined the service, right during the surge. So everyone was telling me, don't join, don't join. It's what I wanted to do, so I did it. I especially knew what I was getting myself into when I joined as infantry. When I agreed to be an infantryman, I knew what what came with the job, you know. So it was definitely a positive experience because you know, it was I got a lot of discipline from it, a lot of life experience. 24 years old right now, turning 25 in a few hours, you know. But I definitely feel that my personality is a more mature one, especially considering what I went through. Um, and like I said, the army just taught me all kinds of extra values and principles, stuff like that, and it just made me a better man, overall. Yeah, I had some, like I said, I had that rough patch there, but besides that, as you and most people who know me know, I was actually in the Army boxing team. So I actually got some, doing that and stuff like that, and my benefits, like, for example, school benefits, I paid nothing to attend UAT here, Um, it's definitely, I see it as worth it because I got some really good, fun experiences, like being on the boxing team was the best experience, and the benefits I get now, it's just, it was definitely worth it for me. It was good experience.
It's good to see that you have a positive outlook on
Absolutely.
the military, even though you experienced the combat and angers you did.
Yeah.
One more question about your service.
No problem.
If you were to give advice to younger people considering military service, what would that be?
If I had to give advice to younger people who are considering joining, I would say, a lot of veterans will down talk the military, say, no, it's shitty, don't do it, don't join, do something else. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't. I would say it's a great experience. You definitely it's a great experience. It's fun. You'll learn a lot and you'll gain some extremely valuable life experience. But on the same page, it's not a game. It's a big choice, man. It's a big choice. It's a big commitment, especially when you consider what job you pick. For example, prior to joining the military, I knew how to program. I've known how to program for years now. So I could have chosen a computer job, but I love my country. I wanted to serve. I felt the best way to serve was actually, you know, um, fighting the war hands on. Um, Obviously, looking back now, I think I would have chosen a different career field, but I picked it. I did my job, so I would definitely say consider the career field extremely well, and know that you're joining the military during a time of war. You have to consider that. A lot of people join, and they know it's a time of war, but they don't stop and really consider it. It is a time of war, so there is a not so much anymore, but back then there was definitely a 90% chance that you were going to be in combat. And
You still got a lot of guys that are out there that
Exactly.
really are drawing down. I'm an 18-year vet myself in the Air Force.
Right.
I was the guy that got a computer job.
Right.
Um,
Man,
I didn't actually
great
do.
choice.
I did a lot of combat support from a distance,
Mhm.
and I saw a lot from a distance, but I've never experienced things like what you did.
Right.
One final question.
Mhm.
So, you talked about you getting the Purple Heart and your experiences in the military.
Right.
What does the earning the Purple Heart? What does the Purple Heart mean to you?
It's that's a good and bad side. Obviously, bad side being what you have to do to get it. You have to get hurt to get a Purple Heart. In combat. So the experience sucked. Even though I was going to get it regardless because of the gunshot wound, I was going to get it regardless. But that's really the only downside, man. The plus side is, it's in my opinion, it's an honor to have a Purple Heart, especially considering I got it from the greatest military in the world, the best military in the world, from the best country in the world. In my opinion, like I said, I'm a patriot, man. I love this country. I'm a firm believer in, in allegiance to the United States. So me, especially having that mentality, receiving an award for having served my country in combat is an honor, man. It's truly an honor. Purple Heart's hanging up in my house. I treasure it, especially considering that I share it with a lot of other veterans who were hurt in combat operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, Vietnam, World War II. They've all got Purple Hearts. But just thinking about it, that I share a medal with those guys, it's an honor, man. I feel extremely humbled and privileged to hold that honor. So it was that's what it means to me, man. It means it's honorable. I share it with my son. My son knows why I got it. My little boy's 4 years old now, turning 5 soon, and he knows what it is. He knows how much it means to his daddy. So A couple times I pull it down, let him shine it for me, clean it up for me. It's always awesome watching my son do it. And yeah, it's an honor, man. It's an honor to be a Purple Heart. Sucks getting it, but once you do it, you're sharing it with a long line of soldiers for generations, man, who got it. So it's an honor.
Well, George, thanks for interviewing me today.
No problem, man.
I think I learned a lot. You definitely gave me a perspective on a few things. And I wish you the best of life. And I hope, like I said, it's been 25
Yeah, man.
years younger than me.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
So hope you make the best of it.
Thank you,
Seems
man.
will.
Appreciate it, dude.
Thanks,
All right, man.
George.
No problem.